negotiations in Belarus. Russian side has presented very specific drafts for documents, and the Ukrainian side, having taken these proposals to Kiev, they assured us that they would give specific answers to this proposal, because we would like to conduct our negotiations on the Belarusian side on a very serious way. We want to have documents which would regulate the Ukrainian crisis comprehensively and would ensure security on the European continent, taking into account all interests of all countries. So in brief, this is what we talked about today, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Channel 1 Russia, your question. Channel 1 Russia.
BBC, thank you very much for doing this. Can I ask you first about the issue of the 20-month ceasefire? You said there that Mr. Lavrov was not in a position, or was not the decision maker, but that he would go and ask the question. Do you have any confidence there can now be a 24-hour ceasefire?
Очень понял в переводе. Если отвечать на вопрос, как разрывается специальная военная операция, эти оценки дают, во-первых, представители нашего Министерства обороны, и самое главное дает...
I did not quite understand the question in translation, but if I say about how the special military operation is going on, these assessments, first of all, are given by the representatives of our Ministry of Defense and also by the President as the Chief Commander. And he emphasized that the operation is going on according to the plan. As for supplies of weapons to Ukraine from abroad, yes, we see how dangerously our Western colleagues are acting, including European Union, who is in violation to all its principles and values, supplying deadly weapons, including thousands of rocket launchers, which are very mobile and can be moved very easily, and which are used very often to create threats for civilian aviation. Where these thousands of rocket launchers end up in the end, we want to ask this question of our European Union colleagues.
Like he's forgotten, isn't he?
So we were trying to end the politics that was threats to Russia over the number of years. And we did not get an answer how this flow of weapons will be controlled. So these threats and dangers will be created in Ukraine and also in the whole of Europe. As for your question whether we are planning to attack other countries, we are not planning to attack other countries. We did not attack Ukraine. We explained to Ukraine that many times that there's a situation which is posing direct threat to the Russian Federation. And despite our many years of warning, of expressing our concerns, nobody listened to us. President Putin explained that in great detail many times. And these facts that are being uncovered on the territories that are being liberated now in Donetsk and Lugansk tells us that the attack was being planned for the coming months. And of course,
location reached. Drop me in and defend our position.
In in the biological laboratories that are created using Pentagon money on the Ukrainian territory in order to experiment using pathogens which could be used to create biological weapons. Representatives of Washington publicly denied rumors, so they said, that they are engaged in some forbidden activity in Ukraine. That's not surprising, and European Union started to say that they don't have any data that
Still working on
Americans
it. Continue to defend.
engaged in some forbidden military activity in Ukraine. This is not surprising either. United Nations also stated that they don't have such information. This is not surprising either. And all of this activity was conducted, being carried out in deep secret, in the same way as these military biological laboratories being created in former Soviet Union countries, right on the perimeter of Russia, and also in China. And this is something they would not be able to get away with.
We are finished here.
Every state, according to the convention, has
this
to
will only get more difficult. Get to a terminal and prepare for enemy resistance.
On their territory or on other territories. This is how I'll answer this question. Those who are pumping Ukraine with weapons, they need to understand that they have responsibility for their actions. And also those
Here
who
is a
are
terminal.
encouraging the
Get
flow
me
of
in
mercenaries
and get ready
to
to defend.
Ukraine in order to fight in accordance with those traditions,
This will take a moment.
ultra-radical traditions that the Ukrainians have practiced in Ukraine.
Of a maternity and children's hospital. Do you agree with President Zelensky that that is an atrocity? To target pregnant mothers and children is in fact an atrocity. And also, for the Russian people themselves, today Russia faces a $40 billion default. That's worse than we've seen the Russian economy since 1917 and the Bolshevik Revolution. How do you justify it
Still
to people
working on it.
that you've
Continue
wrecked
to
their
defend.
economy for an invasion that, frankly, the rest of the world does not believe should be happening? Thank you so much.
Спасибо большое. Ну, один минут.
Thank you very much for the maternity ward. It's not for the first time that we see the shouting in relation to so-called
Terminal hacked.
atrocities
Keep
of
moving.
the Russian military. On the 7th of March, 3 days ago, 7th or 6th of March, can't remember, at the United
Multiple
Nations
targets ahead.
Security Council, our delegation presented the facts that this maternity ward had been captured by Azov Battalion a long time ago,
Terminal
and other
spotted.
radicals.
Upload me and prepare to defend.
Mothers, all pregnant ladies were taken out of the building, and this was
I'm
the
in, Tenno.
base of the
This will take a
ultra-radicals Azov. This information had been passed 3 days ago, and so make your own conclusions. How the public opinion is being manipulated in the whole world. And I saw the reports today on your channel and other Western media. They're very emotional, but unfortunately the second or the other side of any situation that allows us to create an objective picture never gets that much
Still
attention.
working on it.
As for the
Continue to
state of
defend.
economy of Russian Federation, we will take care about it ourselves. President is dealing with this, our government is dealing with this. We have just, it became clearer again for us. And you say that we're using various terms to justify what we're doing in Ukraine. We attracted people's attention to the fact that Ukraine is being made into an anti-Russia state. And when the West, starting from the 2000s, they required Ukrainians
The odds
to
were against us,
make
Tenno,
their mind
but we
whether
did it.
they're with the
Mission
West or with
complete.
the Russia. And what sort of Western values are these when they are forced to make that choice? And we saw these manipulations when pro-Western candidates was at the last place when it was, I think, in 2009, when in violation of Ukrainian constitution, West has forced Ukraine to make a decision to do
So
to
we
get
learn
Many things have been taken from
clarity
us.
around
It's
the
true. But fortune favors the bold. And there ain't
at
none
the
so
time nobody
bold
was
as people with
threatening to
nothing to
anybody,
lose.
but constantly
If it's
they were
useful,
trying to make
do
a
it.
pro-Western experimental tool. And ultimately, when the NATO began to require Ukraine to have complete freedom to join the bloc, when military bases were being created, when they started to discuss placing rockets that would threaten the territory of Russia. And as we find out now, they've got biological weaponry laboratories that were being active on that territory. And when they started talking about cancelling the non-nuclear status of the country, we our Western partners to agree security principles on the territory of Europe, and we were told we can discuss anything, but don't even touch the topic of NATO expansion. And NATO is not threatening me, they said. How is it possible that NATO is determining the status of our security and what is threatening us and what is not? So we are not interested in trying to justify our actions in Ukraine. We presented these actions in a very clear way. We do not want a militarized Ukraine. Without any NATO, you could put American systems which would keep our territory in crossfires. We don't want to keep that tendency of creation of neo-Nazi state in Ukraine with the Nazi traditions, with the battalions, with SS symbols marching and are being welcomed by the president, and many other things when these military are being trained to conduct terrorist activity. In fact, we want Ukraine to be neutral. We've been said many times that insisting on non-expansion of NATO, we do not want to remove security from Ukraine. We are prepared to discuss Ukrainian security together with guarantees of security of European countries and also Russia. And President Zelensky, and now this understanding is coming through, and that is giving us some optimism. And we managed to deal with
When you need
all
it,
these
extraction is
difficulties.
ready.
We all figured out the history, but this time, I assure you, we will cover up the choices completely healthy consciousness, and we will not have any illusions that West could be around the corner. We will not have any illusion that West can betray you at any moment, and betray anybody, and can betray its own values. Where it's never been seen before that you can just flick the fingers and recall the right to property, private property. And you see that all these values, fundamental values, Western values have been violated by just taking private property. And we will do everything possible not to depend on the West in those areas of our life, which are essential for our life.
сам глагол как политическому регулированию, но единственный серьезный переговорчик,
Channel 1, can you speak into the microphone? Messaging Panchkin, I would like to cite one of the latest statements from Kiev. Deputy Chief of Staff of President is prepared for diplomatic settlement, but the only negotiations possible between the two countries is a negotiation at the level of the presidents. Do you think it would make sense to conduct negotiations at the level of the president? I think it's very clear to everyone. President Putin never refuses personal contact, but we don't want these contacts to be arranged just for its own sake. We talked about this, by the way, with Mr. Kuleba. Mr. Kuleba highlighted this point that you are raising now. I reminded him
As
that
you
we are
conquer the
always
foe,
for
so you
meetings
conquer
in
yourself.
person if we can achieve some added value and if we can resolve the problem. And the Ukrainian government over the last few years after the anti-constitutional coup, they prefer meetings for the sake of meetings. They prefer to simulate specific agreements through these new contacts with
They've fiddled
you remember
it.
these Minsk agreements were completely blocked by them. Zelensky constantly kept saying, let's finally meet. And when we reminded our Ukrainian colleagues that in December 2019 there was a Normandy format summit and all the decisions were to be implemented by Kiev and none of them was implemented, they began again repeating the need to meet in person and then we will agree. And then why did we have to meet in Paris if in order to implement the decisions we need to run another summit? So this manner of trying to replace the essence of any problem with this appearances, well, we need to have a summit and then we need to invite the British, the Polish, the Americans and then the Turkish, and now they're trying to do the parallel group of contacts where they would invite Germans and French. They are just a fountain of initiative, but all of them are explained in a very simple way. They want to replace the actions they need to implement with some show effects. So we did confirm
Your
that
weapons make
Putin is
music,
not refusing to meet
and the
with
enemy
Zelensky.
calls for a song.
And at some point that need will be there. But in order for this to happen, we need to do some preliminary work, which is being conducted using Belarus track. We have 3 rounds. We presented our offers, and Ukrainian side promised to come back to us with Ukrainian media, public TV of Ukraine.
There's no telling what the captors are doing to our rescue target. You need to find the holding cell immediately.
With the attempt to denazify. When you came to Crimea, there were some kidnappings in Tatar groups,
It will be a
but
perfect
in Azov, in the south, one of the ladies had been kidnapped, Miss Ibragimova. So you are moving to another level. Over the last 8 years, they did not kidnap any women. What would you say to this? These are facts. So this is my region, Militopol, where I grew up. You said that these are facts, but I think significantly there's another word starting with F, which is fakes. And internet and the airwaves have been filled up with this fakes. I did not know about this story about kidnapping of public representative, but the manner that the Kiev regime is famous.
You are approaching the holding area. Careful. If the wardens detect you, they will surely initiate the execution sequence.
Kiev was just assassinated, and they say he was assassinated by the security services of Ukraine because of the treason, and then they said there was some
The
other
captive will be in one of
problems.
these
So
cells.
if we
Search
deal
them.
with all these individual stories, we will find lots of very shocking facts. But if you take one episode,
Hurry up.
and if
You are
you just
running
try
out of
to agitate public opinion on that basis, including here in Turkey, in order to establish the anti-Russian policy, this is again trying to replace real serious conversation with this show effects. And I've not heard about this particular case.
Make a start, not a
You can give me all sorts of names and surnames
You've
and so on.
located the hostage.
I
Escort the
wanted
prisoner
to
to the
say
extraction
that I
point,
will
and I'll
inquire,
take
but
care
I
of
have
the
not
rest.
heard about this. I heard about Shevchenko, which disappeared in Kiev,
Got a
and
weapon
I
for
heard
me?
about...
I've got some scores to settle.
I'm sorry, this is not an interview, this is a press conference. We need to allow the Italian agency to... I think you have been filmed already, and you'll be shown very clearly on your own TV. You've achieved your goal now. Our Italian colleagues, please, if we can give the microphone.
Thank you very much.
We talked about action from the Italian agency.
Мария, здесь демократия.
Those who want to just take a moment.
И я помню, просто немножко
I talked about this. I mentioned that we are very concerned with all this information that came to light that Pentagon had created a few dozens of biological laboratories on the Ukrainian territory as part of their program of creating these laboratories all over the world in violation of the Convention on Prohibition of Biochemical Weapons. And we did send an inquiry to requiring explanations. And the fact that they used their biological weapons, I don't have any facts to that, but I'd like to, but it's quite clear that this is ethnically oriented development of biological weapons, and this was the goal of these laboratories.
There's a fascia or a guttering firm company out there, Van. I wonder if that's to do with it or not. Yeah.
The United States openly stating that they told their ambassadors to persuade other countries to join sanctions. Did you instruct your own ambassadors to do the same? This isolation of the West, is it in their own heads? We are briefing our ambassadors in great detail. We talk about facts in relation to one situation or another situation, and our ambassadors are conveying this information to the powers of the country where they work. Running around the world and trying to force independent sovereign countries, members of UN, to execute the order of the bigger brother. This is not in our traditions. We are very polite people, and Americans are not hiding the fact that they are demanding from Turkey, from India, Egypt, Southeast Asia, and even China. From China, they are requiring to join the sanctions. This sort of disrespect to great civilizations, to great countries, I could not even imagine that. But you can see that for Americans, no forbidden things.
Each
And
enemy
we are
is
not
more
engaging
powerful
in
than
such war.
before.
Chinese.
With true mastery of the Tenno arsenal, will you succeed?
The reactor is a complex system. Start by removing the coolant cells.
This is the original one.
My intel suggests there are rich enemy supply caches in the area, but I am unable to pinpoint their exact location.
Oh, maybe not.
Search them out if you are willing to shoulder the added risk.
That Russia did not invade Ukraine, and it clearly has. You've also said that Russia would not hurt civilians, and thousands have been hurt. This is showing hospitals being attacked. Why should the Ukrainians take you seriously with all due respect? Why should they believe a word you say in the rest of the world?
As for the hospital and infinity wards, I have talked about this, but you didn't listen to this, and you're not going to show this.
The reactor is going into
will
stasis.
say
Now is your chance to
3 days
complete
ago,
this
the
sabotage.
Security
Use
Council
whatever
of the
you can
United
to make
Nations
sure
will
it
explain
never
what
works
happened to
again.
that maternity ward. As for
Coolant
the
cell extracted.
statements, who is going to do what and who is not going to do what. Until the last
Fuel cell
moment, we
reinserted.
wanted
When
to
the reactor is
resolve this
restarted,
matter
this will trigger a
amicably.
meltdown.
No.
We presented an extensive document
Destroy
on
the fuel injectors.
bilateral
He said,
agreement with the
he
US
said next week. I don't know what's going on with this fucking. People
The
say this
reactor
week,
has
next
gone
week,
critical.
fucking.
Get to extraction.
Same with the courts as well. Like what
on the continent, including Ukraine.
the fuck?
Beware, Tenno. This ship is experiencing
I mean, I don't. I mean, I could.
magnetic
We
anomalies.
will
I
deal
could phone him up, like,
and we will resolve the people of Ukraine.
just to see what was going on. Never considered to get to speak to Sam though. Busy man he is.
We propose not creating any threats on the ground for Ukraine to.
He said he did say he was going to send that by post, didn't he? Yeah, not by email. Oh, I might phone him today.
Even if you're not allowed to talk to your listeners.
I was waiting for the doctor this morning. What about that?
Put yourself
I'm not
free
too bothered about that.
this document and understand our logic.
I've got
It's
painkillers that'll do me for now.
We want a Ukraine which will be friendly,
Hey?
demilitarized,
I said I've got painkillers that'll do me for now.
with not
And I want to see how good the eyes are in it as well. It's definitely worked with the not playing that straight away though. See, yeah, so that's definitely helped. So it's got to be. Yeah, I reckon it's my eyesight now. I think.
All our attempts to influence the Ukrainians on this, they failed. When the Ukraine started the war, only Ukrainians fit for using the territory, and all other languages were discriminated against in school, in other universities, and Hungary and Bulgaria started to express their discontent. And Ukraine then made an exception in a very elegant way, exception out of this law for European Union languages, and only Russian was left as a discriminated language, and the West went quiet. It just emphasizes the fact that West is only interested in Ukraine working against anything that is Russian. What the West has done in relation to
I want to get paid for the weekend as well, don't I?
in Crimea,
I want to get paid for the weekend as well.
there was no
You said you know once payment done, didn't you say in the Guardian?
NATO created a situation where
What about your sister's Guardian? She's not bothered with that.
they created the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing it if you want. If you can ask if you want.
And when
If she wants it done, I'll do it, innit?
they
Clear
were
it, but if you don't, then no.
independence, the whole West just applauded it.
It's up to her. If she wants it cleared, I'll clear it.
Albanians didn't do this, and Russians can't do it. Albanians in Yugoslavia, and they were not.
And her carpets, so if she wants them done as well, I'll do it.
They were.
Just ask, innit? See what she says. If she wants it done or not.
Have this,
Alright, fair enough. Put the Guardian then, just see if she wants it done.
A country
try my best to clear it, but I did clear it right last time, didn't I? So I just... It all depends on whether she's staying there or not, innit? Well, when she's going to give it up, innit? She don't know herself, no. No, that's what I'm saying, it all depends on when, yeah, she doesn't know herself, so... Yeah. Yeah, she probably will, yeah. Yeah.
Very aggressive reaction. This is, yeah, it really
go and see it now.
This is a fight for.
We go on Sunday, to be honest. And then take that jet wash and that hose back and that's
I don't really like people when they're on Sunday,
but Saturday.
Just now,
Don't you like people on Sunday? Or no, as if I just drop that round and go? Or not? The jet wash and the hose.
during this meeting, and what's your plan
Oh, yeah.
to ease the crisis? Thank you.
Oh, okay, then
You've got
alright.
enough to do without seeing my dad at the weekend.
Have I?
Yeah?
In order to
You've got the craft, no,
substitute the
You've got
negotiations
to do that work
that was
downstairs.
created by the
And he's probably going to have them doing some more.
and that is being conducted.
Yeah, come one day of the week, a Saturday, Sunday, and then the weekend, and then he'll probably say carry on Sunday when he's not here.
Exactly.
What
Do
needs
that
to
in
be
your leisure while you're
done
down there on
to
Sunday.
finish this crisis, demilitarization,
Alright.
denazification, neutral status of Ukraine, and a number of other things. And this is where business negotiations are taking place.
Be nice when we're down there, is your mum and dad to come round.
Rather than beginning of this meeting, that we're not going to
Because we weren't going to have a garden then.
parallel track as Ukrainian side probably wants to do. For this reason, they always try to substitute.
You still want a PlayStation, yeah?
With,
No, I don't mind.
creating
I like
new
waiting
formats
until they're ready.
that, of course, need to take
You don't mind waiting till you got money.
center stage and
So that's like that
that
much.
just
So,
stimulates
yeah, I've got to get one.
as for
Straight away, you know what I mean?
The other option I could do is not get one, just wait, or
and I'm not
have 3 months to pay it off and just pay the deposit. I could do it that way if you wanted me to do it
agree on the ceasefire. Nobody was going to
that way.
negotiate the ceasefire here. All the
You will have to pay the full amount now.
proposals are very well known to the Ukrainian side. And if the purpose of the meeting was to ask this sort of question, let's start the ceasefire, let's create the
You were on about to start streaming that, weren't you?
and if all of this is being done in order to show to the media that all our intentions have failed, that is part of the Ukrainian diplomacy and all the special effects that has the goal to public opinion in the media.
Say that I have news. I want to, my first question is the state policy and gas. What is the Russian oil policy here? And the second question is about sanctions. How Russia is reacting to the sanctions for different companies and countries?
I think I touched upon this issue already. How are we going to deal? I think we're fully framed. I said that we will resolve this issue, and we will resolve it in such a way that we're not dependent on our Russian partners, whether it is our business or our companies, or not guided by the interests of the business. They are just tools of the political aggression that Russia is feeling from the West. We will do everything possible not to be in this situation ever again, so that no person, no Sam or anybody else could do anything to destroy our economy. And we will find ways to do this. This is long overdue. And there was another question. Sanctions. Yeah, and as for oil and gas, again, we're leaving this to the decision makers. We never used oil and gas as weapons. There's something that is
This guy Russian, this guy here.
being charged with.
Thought so.
And in 2010, I think there was a crisis.
You know, tell about where it's trying to blame.
Yeah, I could. I just wanted to confirm it was. Yeah, he is trying to blame Ukraine for it.
We were supplying gas to full volume, and they were just scheming. Do you think Ukraine, as you can view it, tried to dissuade them? No, they started to say, oh, Russia is using it. But again, trade, everything that is happening.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, using it,
is measured.
using it as a weapon to say like, we got the gas and you're not having it. If we say you're not having it, innit? Basically, if we say you can't have the gas, you're not having the gas. Oil, yeah, you're not going to have it.
They are cursing us for applying sanctions, and they ran away. And then they say, oh, we're going to buy oil and gas because we're going to get cold. I advised Prime Minister who regulates overseeing this industry. He said that we're not going to try to persuade them to try to buy oil and gas from us. If they want to replace it with something else, that's fine. We have our sales market elsewhere.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. I'm Eva Kutu from Wall Street Journal. My question is, does Russia have any red lines in terms of military aid? Where would you draw a line before taking military action? Well, against those in this war standing with military aid. Do you have a red line? For instance, are sending military aid to Ukraine? Do you have a red line with regard to military aid before you take action?
This question whether we're going to react to what countries are doing when they supply weapons to Ukraine. We believe that these countries are creating a colossal threat for themselves when they are passing the most dangerous weapons, this portable rocket launchers, and when they are witnessing Ukrainian authorities are just giving out weapons to everyone without any control. We never said that they would have any plans in relation to NATO countries.
So Putin's doing what he's doing, and he's essentially the one that's trying to cover it all up, isn't he? For him. He's the one that's speaking on his behalf to try and cover it all up, isn't he? This one here. That's what it sounds like to me. Putin's not going to fucking be interviewed or nothing, is he? He's getting this guy to do it for him. Huh? Isn't it? He's getting this as a spokesperson to do all the talking for him when he carries on fucking attacking Ukraine.
This is when it's in line with the tradition when they take the feet of the first wheel what was impossible to imagine yesterday. Do you believe that nuclear war to believe in this, and I don't believe in this. I want to emphasize that the nuclear topic in the context of the Ukrainian events over the last few years and this topic was introduced exclusively by the Western representatives. First of all, NATO representatives. There's a trust. I support not excluding conflicts between NATO and Russia. I don't know if he made statements and Stoltenberg was also making statements. I don't know whether he's making statements agreeing them with all NATO members. They said that if we could place nuclear weapons in Eastern Europe, and the president said, I think he said that Putin should remember that French started with the nuclear power, and they also stated that the Turkish war has been for the rest of the country. And I said that when there was a question about
You have broken their ranks and they are on the run. Another successful mission. Find extraction.
The only alternative.
It's just basically denying everything that's been that.
They possibly have that in subconscious.
Trying to like sweep on the carpet.
They keep coming back to.
So Putin's getting away with doing what he's doing, and then this guy's coming on going, oh, do you know what? No, he's not doing that. He's not doing that. He's not doing that. And he's blaming the other countries for it all instead of fucking blaming his own fucking country for it. Fucking what a prick.
For negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Is Russia considering this, and when are the next negotiations possible? Russia, as I said at the beginning of our press conference, is very grateful to everyone who, out of their goodwill, are proposing conditions to regulate the current internal Ukrainian crisis, and to everyone who is prepared to help find solutions, taking into account all the concerned parties on the basis of balance of interests. The most important thing is that these proposals, our Turkish friends, our friends from Kazakhstan, they are making those proposals based on goodwill. We don't want Ukrainian side to use these proposals as an excuse. They have this traditional as ways of replacing real action. I remember they were proposing a Turkish platform, and what was behind that was the desire not to implement the measures or to do its work, and to replace it with show effects. But if there is added value, we said this, President Putin said that many times, we are happy to use those formats, but they should not just be used for the sake of using some new format.
Foreign Minister James Landau, BBC News. Foreign Minister, is Russia really serious about seeking a negotiated solution to this crisis? Seeking a negotiated solution to this war?
Yes, we are very serious.
If so, what did you bring to the table today? What progress, if any, did you make? And secondly, if I may, how can you talk of diplomacy and ceasefires and negotiations when maternity hospitals are being struck with so many civilians are dying?
You see, it's the third time that I'm being asked about the maternity ward, and third time they want to hear. They don't want to hear the answer, and you are not listening to this answer again. I said the third time that I had been asked about the maternity ward, and it looks like you did not hear what I wanted reply, and your key media in the West, they're just making headlines out of this. We did say on the 7th of March there were no children or women in this maternity ward, and this maternity ward was taken over by Azov, and they created a base there. It's the same way as they're behaving all over Ukraine. They are turning people into human shields. They are turning civilian neighborhoods into strongholds, and they're placing artillery there, and they're attacking the forces of Donetsk and Lugansk from there. But as for our proposals,
Operator, did you hear
our
that?
proposals are very serious. We did put these proposals
Cosmic
back
background
in December,
radiation is a
15th of
riot.
December, and these were proposals about the system of security, and it wasn't a new system, it was just an implementation of what had been agreed at the highest political levels, including OSCE summit in 1999 in Istanbul, in Astana 2010. It was written in black and white that any country can choose an alliance, but nobody has the right to strengthen its security at the expense of other countries' security. And this was part of the formula. And you mentioned diplomacy. This was the pinnacle of democracy, and this was signed by Russia, by our neighbors, and by the free world, so-called. And there were signatures. Nobody is going to strengthen its security at the expense of other countries' security. And no organization, no country on the European field needs to try to be the dominant force, as NATO is trying to do currently, and violating this principle. And when our proposal to sign an agreement between Russia and NATO, where the principles are being implemented, not just taken out of thin air, but the principles taken out of these documents, documents having legal force, instead of replying to us at the level of states, we received a document from Burrell and Stoltenberg, half a page, where it said that yeah, don't worry about it, we are prepared to talk and so on. But the fact that these obligations had been signed, and NATO and European Union, it had nothing to do with this. They said that it was the individual countries who had to, and they just delegated all authority to the General Secretary of NATO, and they just placed all responsibility for that on him. This is what was done to diplomacy. This is something that was done to it by your Western representatives. Of course, we want diplomacy now to resolve all the issues, but this time we explained very clearly that demilitarization of Ukraine, we need denazification of Ukraine, and we can't do without this, because the threats that were being created on the territory of this country for the Russian Federation was direct military, cultural, informational threats, language threat, if you want, civilization threat to Russia, and it had a very urgent character to it, and we are dealing with our partners in a very honest way, and if our partners were the same, we would have resolved everything. However, we don't see the partners who are prepared to conduct matters in a very honest way. However, there were attempts to do this, and I'm hoping those leaders who are now very active in relation to what's going on in Ukraine, I hope that they realize the existential threat to the whole European security, which is caused by their inaction and their lack of desire to implement implement the agreements. We never wanted war, and we want to end the war based on the interests of the republics that refused to accept the results of the military coup in 2014, and they witnessed how the representatives of this regime were burning people alive in Odessa and were bombing people in Lugansk. And over the last 8 years, they were shelling schools and kindergartens and hospitals, and we've got lots of evidence of this because our journalists, and great respect to them, many of them died there, they did show everything that was happening there, and Western journalists practically did not go to that contact line, and they never showed how the actual situation of the people on that side. 70% of all the damage was concentrated on this side of this republic. It was once that